Let's go. Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Great.com talks with Jackson Block, the co-founder and CEO of LGBT plus VC. If you haven't heard of it, they work to solve the root causes of the LGBTQ plus wealth gap. If you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Jackson, and welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm super excited as well. And I believe that this is a topic that it's very, very important that we have not addressed here in this podcast yet. But before understanding this, let's learn more about the organization, right, Jackson? So what motivated the creation of LGBT plus VC?
Well, the story of LGBTVC started honestly from individuals. My co-founder and I came together when we were working at an early stage investment firm that was focused on LGBTQ companies. But there was a bigger problem. So in the United States, and this is true kind of around the world, less than 1% of all private dollars go to LGBTQ-led enterprises. Um, which is just a shame. It's just a shame. Um, and we know from similar minority groups, like Black VC, which is a partner of ours, that Black investors are 4 times more likely to invest in Black founders. That was the research that they put out. And so when we're building out the organization, we said, how can we make the next generation of LGBTQ investors? Because our fundamental flywheel is more LGBTQ and ally investors. And I'll talk about allies in a story in a second, why that's so important and the surprise that we got building the organization. Um, Good surprise. More LGBTQ and ally investors equals more LGBTQ ally investment, which equals more LGBTQ and ally employment, which means more LGBTQ and allied donations. And nonprofits and philanthropic nonprofits like ours, LGBTQ, receive less than 1% of philanthropic dollars. So we're in a funding crisis not only for our businesses, but also our nonprofit and innovation in the queer community. So what do we need? We need more LGBTQ people who are taking back their economic power and agency.
Absolutely. Thanks for those numbers. I did not have any idea of this. I think this is something that we feel it happens, but we don't really know how to, you know, uh, get rational about it. And it makes absolute sense to think of it, especially when we see how much economical power is actually driven of change, right? It's where we start to make demands. It's the moment when we say, "Hey, I have the power here, so we're gonna change some stuff." But help us understand better this gap, Jackson. I don't know much really what are the root causes, how it actually how we actually got there, what can be changed. So, and especially how it is affecting our community in different ways, right? Could you guide us through these ideas?
Yeah, so this is a compounding crisis. And like I don't want to be like educational too much, but like let's go back in history. So each letter of LGBTQ represents a different experience and a different perspective. I've always felt LGBTQ is diversification, and it's a coalition. But let's go back a little bit. Actually, and our tagline is from Stonewall to Silicon Valley. So let's go back to 1969, New York City, when the Stonewall riots are happening. At the same time, all of those things are happening. Women couldn't get a credit card in the United States without their husbands. So, and the financial system that we're building is being built. And so it's excluding minorities, Black and brown people, um, a variety of different folks, and specifically queer people. And then it compounds. Wealth is a compounding principle. So the more you have capital, the more likely you're able to succeed because you're able to use your capital to get more capital to get more capital. I used to work as and ran a bakery, and I usually explain venture capital from a place of let's talk about a sourdough starter. You take a little bit of the starter dough, the mother dough, and then you put a little bit more, and then you put a little bit more, and it continues. The problem was at the very beginning of the time that LGBTQ rights and progress are there, you couldn't be out at work. You would be fired for a variety of different things. Now, fast forward 50 years, there's been a tremendous amount of LGBTQ progress around the globe. However, we're still seeing this compounding crisis. It's a don't ask, don't tell environment where people are not publicly out about their LGBTQ identities, where it's really hard to break into financial industries without knowing people in the industries, which are predominantly heterosexual and straight. And so as a result, if we don't get into the door, we can't change who the door opens for.
Absolutely. And thanks for this metaphor. I think it's so much easier to understand the whole idea of venture capital through this. And thinking about it, what are you guys have been doing, to change this reality, I would say? What are your reach, how far can you actually engage people and change their lives?
It's honestly, the impact has been transformational in a variety of different ways. So we've been one of the fastest growing, I think, nonprofit organizations in America for a variety of different reasons. When you put it into perspective, I feel very blessed that we had this incredible first year for our organization. We launched at Netflix and celebrated our 1 year anniversary at the Ford Foundation Center for Social Justice. That is not the same trajectory that many nonprofits have. And I feel very privileged for my co-founder, the team of LGBT plus fellows, our 50 plus corporate partners, and honestly, individual donors who have given to the organization. 51% of our operating budget comes from individuals believing this idea. And that's really incredible. The majority comes from individuals. So to answer your question, it was like, how do we get back to where?
Yes, how what programs do you have and how do you do it?
Yeah, what programs we have and how we do it. So we, in our first year, focused on educating, train, and mobilizing people across the country. We launched chapters in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston, New York. But honestly, as soon as we launched the organization, we saw global demand towards the idea. In every continent except Antarctica, there are LGBTQ people who need this hope and promise. The LGBTQ community has been in three phases: panic, pride, and what we're trying to usher in is this third phase and third wave movement, prosperity.
Absolutely. I think it's necessary that we actually see ourselves in this prosperity phase, right? Because it's been so much time of struggle and trying to find ourselves in a place in the world that it's hard for us to see how we can actually move things upwards like in a more stable way. It doesn't have to be up and down all the time, right? I think that's kind of how it goes.
Yes, we like to build from a place of abundance, and we fundamentally believe that it is a community effort. That's why we started it as a nonprofit organization. Um, you know, People were like, do we need more acronyms in LGBT plus? But we say LGBT plus VC because the plus represents the variety of LGBTQIA plus and gender diverse experiences that many of our members and our community people focus on. But we think the moment that people understand a little bit more about venture capital, which is the fastest growing form of finance in the United States and all around the world, which focuses on the fastest growing portion of private sector employment, we can actually promote social progress for our people and our ideas, our innovation, by leveraging this tool as a means for something even greater than ourselves. And that's what real progress is. When I was wearing an LGBTVC shirt, actually during Pride, someone who was a cashier, who was identified as queer, looked at it and started asking, "What's the VC?" And that was the moment where you started seeing it or feeling it on the streets. And that's what we're really doing, building that hope and prosperity and sharing that and the idea around. So for the listeners who are like listening in on this, I hope you think of yourself as an investor. Whenever a college fellow applies for our program or a youth or someone comes in, we already call them investors from day one because we really do believe that it is part of like a birthright for LGBTQ people to be investors.
I love when you bring this theme of innovation and how you are approaching this building wealthness, right? Or actually building wealth, building wealth. It's amazing because I feel like at this point we are so beyond of the idea of you need to work yourself off, every day to make something good for you, and then you're gonna build up to here, get up to grow up until here in life, when we can actually look at the system in a more global perspective. But then, from the example that you gave me of someone asking what the VC means, what do you say it's like the level of maturity in terms of financial knowledge they're getting to you? And how are you able to help them if they're not really there yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the easiest way to explain this, because I had to explain this to my own family, is Shark Tank. And if you can understand Shark Tank, you can understand basically the tenets of venture capital. We run a high school program in partnership with the New York City's mayor's office, and summer youth employment program, and it's the largest LGBTQ employment program for youth in the like world that currently exists. New York City actually funds LGBTQ youth to get job opportunities. We took on some students as part of that, trans and young girls, and they were learning about VC. And people were like, "Why are you doing at the high school age?" And we're like, "Well, that's the opportunity. They are the future." And honestly, the high school students understand it. Showing them Shark Tank, they understand the VC food chain. They learn about finance because in other homes, you're talking about it from day one. You're talking about it as you're a little kid, in small bite-sized pieces. So I think everyone deserves that opportunity to learn financial education. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in public schools, all as much as it should. But this is one of the ways that we make a difference and kind of teach. There's a lot of information online to learn about this, but Shark Tank, I think, is the easiest way to describe it.
Absolutely. And once again, I love the way we explain it. It really helped me out. And talking about information online, I urge everyone listening or watching us right now to check your website, right, which is lgbtvc.org. You can get information about them, about what they do, about their impact above all, and get in touch if you want to. Now, Jackson, I think one other thing that we try to address here in the podcast is the challenges that organizations face. And usually I think of more traditional challenges to ask people about. But in your case, it's something quite innovative, honestly. And I really am intrigued about what is like the barriers that you find or really day-to-day challenges that you guys are facing to keep things moving.
Yeah, I don't really love talking about the challenges because the challenges have been um, just blatant discrimination for a variety of different things, racial, gender, sexual orientation, faith-based discrimination, anti-Semitism. We've dealt with a variety of different pieces, which is not what or where we're trying to build the organization. There's been, let's just put this in the United States. Last year, there were 650 anti-LGBTQ bills. 650 anti-LGBTQ bills in 48 out of the 50 states. And even in New York, where we're headquartered, we're a national organization, global organization, there were anti-trans policies that have been tried to have been enacted. Obviously, we have a very nice and a supportive New York ecosystem, but even in the most progressive bubbles, we're seeing this attack on the LGBTQ community and trans and gender diverse individuals. So those challenges do exist, no doubt. Um, but we can't let our challenges fully define us as a community. We need to start innovating towards the future and building from a place of relentless optimism and opportunity. Queer excellence, queer imagination, queer futures, what does it look like if we just take a blank canvas and build and just dream? Um, that's what I try to like lead with at our organization is that I'm hoping to build a generation of dreamers. There's amazing businesses led by LGBTQ people that are right now underfunded. That's an easy problem to solve. We just need to get that more funded. Um, at the same time, those are businesses in climate tech, fintech, technology apps, right? That isn't even talking about LGBTQ specific technology. The ones that have succeeded have been mostly dating apps. And we're now seeing a little bit towards healthcare and financial technologies. But I'm imagining a future where we see drag tech succeed, right? I'm imagining a future where the ballroom scene has technology specific products for them. That's what's really exciting, and that's why we need to convene more LGBTQIA plus investors. So imagination is endless.
I love your imagination. I would love to have like all of these scenes and products and technologies going on, really. It can be so, so amazing. And again, such a shown of strength, I think, such a demonstration of strength from our community. So it would be really amazing to see that. And thinking of this as clearly as a vision of yours, Jackson. What are the next steps for you guys to, or what you're planning to do to help us get there?
Yeah. So our mandate and North Star has been to get 10,000 LGBTQ and ally investors by 2030. And I said at the top, I want to explain our ally. So when we started our work, we actually had people in the like financial service world and also just in the broader ecosystem of ventures and startups actually tell us, I have a gay brother, I have a trans child. I was raised by lesbian parents. These are really important stories that oftentimes are not talked about in the LGBTQ community that honestly were fundamental to our success and fundamental to the work. So we really do need allies in this work, giving their time, resources, support to the LGBTQ community because there's a compounding funding crisis and there's a compounding legislative crisis in every country around the world around LGBTQ rights. So we do need more people to get righteously angry, but righteously towards action for the community. So what are we doing? We're hosting our second annual summit. We hosted it in New York. It was a global VC summit. We host our youth programming in partnership with New York City's mayor's office. And we just honestly had the largest class or record of applications for our college fellowship program, of which 75% of the students who applied are BIPOC individuals, and 44% are women, trans, non-binary, gender expansive, which when you think about the world of finance today, is unbelievably incredible. And I hope everyone who's a listener maybe even considers to like become an investor. Come look at www.lgbtvc.org and think about how this can happen where you live.
Well, absolutely. And picking on this, would you say that getting to your page is the best way to get involved, to engage with what you guys are doing? Or are there other ways?
I think getting to our page, coming to some of our in-person events, reaching out to us. And then, of course, we are a nonprofit. So it would be a miss for me not to say to give a donation is really important. 79% of our donors, it was their first time giving to an LGBTQ nonprofit. Which is fundamentally back to that flywheel. We want more LGBTQ people to donate and allies. Please donate to LGBTQ nonprofits. Look, if you give to LGBTVC, great. That's amazing. Please do. And there are many, many other LGBTQ nonprofits that are also equally well deserving of your time, talent, and treasure. So we hope you give back there too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jackson, for joining us today. This was a wonderful conversation, and we will make sure to add the link to your page on the description of this episode so people can get easy access to it.
Amazing. Thank you so much as well. It was a really delight to be here. I'm really happy.
It was my pleasure. And for everyone listening or watching us, thank you. Thank you so much for staying with us one more time for this more episode. And remember, if you liked it, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that shows the algorithms that this is an important conversation. And then we can spread the word about the importance of LGBTVC. Help out if you can, get involved, learn more about it. And if you want to get in touch with them, go to their page, all right? Bye, and I see you in the next episode.